These men will now be allowed to search women just because these police officers identify as a woman. Let's say I have a sister or my mom in the airport. I don't have an issue with a female officer coming to pat them down. I do have an issue with a man that might wear the costume of a woman or think he's a woman or feel he's a woman to then pat my family down, my sisters or my women folk down. I have an issue with that. If you are a man but you feel like you're a woman, that's fine. That's your world that you're living in. Obviously, I don't agree with that. You do your thing. But my issue is now you're not going to now change reality or the laws based on what's going on in your mind. I don't support that. I don't allow that. I won't entertain that. If I had a male officer who thinks that he is a woman try to pat down my family, my women folk, we're going to have an issue. Best believe we're going to have an issue. This is not something that as Muslims we should ever roll over for. This is something that we have to actively stand up against. In the UK, something very concerning is happening. They're trying to push a law that allows specific police officers in the force that are not actual women. They were born men, but they transitioned into women or they just identify as a woman. These men will now be allowed to search, physically search women. There's a very interesting thing that's been going around in the UK. You know, many people are familiar with the West and their progressive values. They're very familiar with the West and how empowered they want to make everybody feel, how individualized, how expressed everyone wants to feel, right? It's all about me, me, me. It's all about my happiness, my truth, my reality. So I'm sure you guys know that there's been a movement for men to transition into a woman. It's a very new thing. You know, I went to many places in the world, for example, in Africa. You don't see this. Men are men, women are women. In the LGTV electronics movement, right? Those that basically are attracted to the same orientation that they're born into, right? Those that are attracted to the same gender, they say that, oh, it was I was born this way. But then those that want to transition, they say that, oh, I was actually born the wrong way, right? And I need science to correct my biology and my chemistry, even though at the cellular level, you'll never become an actual woman. Some say that I'm born this way, some say that I'm born the wrong way. And my problem with this is, as a Muslim, right, we don't condone this, we don't support this. If you want to do whatever you want to do, you can do it. But I have an issue now when your ideology is going to put my people at risk and just put women in general at risk. Number one, it started with the bathrooms. So we have gender neutral washrooms in the West, which basically say that, you know what, then before that, a man would have a men's washroom and women would have a women's washroom, right? So if you want to go to the washroom as a man, you would go to the men's washroom and you would at the very least expect that no women would be there. Of course, growing up, sometimes you see like a father brings his daughter into the washroom, just because who else is going to look after him? It's more dangerous outside the washroom than the men's washroom supervised by him as the father. It's very normal. I don't have an issue with this. Occasionally you would see this, some little kids, it's innocent, right? But what was very interesting was I went to a washroom in Toronto somewhere, and the washroom was basically I saw the symbol of a man, so I walked in, and while I was walking out, there was a woman there, and I was like, "Why is there a woman in the men's washroom?" And when I went outside, I was like, "Am I tripping? Did I accidentally go into a woman's washroom?" I see the sign, and it's a man, like it looks like a man, but then half of the body is like a dress on the symbol and the icon of the washroom door, which basically means that it was for both. It was a gender neutral washroom. So here's my issue with this. My issue with this is when a woman, one of our sisters in Islam, whether it's your mother, your wife, your daughter, or your cousin, or just a sister in Islam, when she goes into a washroom, this is supposed to be a place that's for female only. She can relieve herself. She can maybe take off her hijab, fix the hijab, stuff like this. This is not a place for non mahram men to be at, right? This is something that compromises her very own belief and her rights that were given to her by Allah. And in the West, there was no issue because for the longest time, a man could not enter a woman's washroom. Men could not enter a woman's washroom because this is a woman's washroom, right? It's like there was this question that was asked, why can't girls be in Boy Scouts? I mean, it's literally called Boy Scouts, right? And I know that There's a lot of these arguments that you'll hear from those that are trying to come at Islam and those that are anti-Islam. For example, when I went on the Jubilee podcast or the Jubilee debate, I went to Cali, which is like fruity central of America. Welcome to fruity central in the West, right? Literally, I could feel that your estrogen levels will rise just breathing the air. Subhanallah. That's probably why they have the clean air tax, because you can't even breathe for free now in America. Anyway, I'm there and I'm debating these ex-Muslims, right? Which I don't even know if they were actually ex-Muslim. So one of the girls on the panel, she basically said, "Why can't I give the adhan as a woman?" Right? And it's not about like why can't I give the adhan? Like, oh, it's like in if you look at it the way that it's presented, it seems like a very innocent question. Why can't she just give the adhan? You know, it's a very like if a 5-year-old kid asked that, but you purposely see that they want to compete with all these things that make a man, and they forget the things that make a woman, right? You don't see me complaining why I have to pray 4 weeks out of the month and why I have to protect my family if it gets to that. It's just my God given responsibility. So I have to do it. It's my role. And a woman has beautiful roles that are different. And just because they're different from a man doesn't make it wrong. So, anyway, with the bathrooms, I had an issue. Now, many states try to get this passed in masjids because a masjid is still a public place. Yes, it's a place of worship and it is a place of worship for people of a specific religion, i.e., Muslims following Islam, practicing Islam. But what they tried to do was because this is a public property, that gender neutral bathrooms must be mandated as well. So a man can go into a woman's washroom. This is something I have a big issue with. Why should a man be able to go to a woman's washroom if it's just for women? I don't want my wife, my daughter, my mom, any women folk of mine as a Muslim man to be exposed to men in there. That doesn't make sense. Not only are there creepy guys, this is also just an issue of just threat, of survival, of safety, right? Why should a man be able to go there? This should be a place where they feel safe, an actual safe space, as they say in the West. But now you want a man to be able to go in there, which I have an issue with. So in the masjid, alhamdulillah, this didn't get mandated. So there's still a sister's washroom and a brother's washroom in the masjid. Where things got very interesting after my issue with this whole gender neutral, gender free washrooms is what happened now in the UK. In the UK, something very concerning is happening. They're trying to push a law that allows specific police officers in the force that are not actual women. They were born men, but they transitioned into women or they just identify as a woman. These men will now be allowed to physically search women, civilians, public innocent women just because these police officers identify as a woman. So my issue with this is if in actuality you were a woman, I don't have an issue with that. Let's say I have a sister or my mom in the airport outside and for any reason they have to be randomly searched, right? Because this happens as Muslims, right? Let's be honest. I don't have an issue with a female searching them. I don't want a man patting them down. What is this? Are we now supposed to be dayuth and just rolling over? So I don't have an issue with a sister, a female officer, coming to pat them down. I do have an issue with a man that might wear the costume of a woman or think he's a woman or feel he's a woman, right? To then pat my family down, my sisters or my women folk down. I have an issue with that. And my issue is very simple. If you are a man, but you feel like you're a woman, that's fine. That's your world that you're living in. I'm not going to come here. Obviously, I don't agree with that. I'm not here to now come at you. You do your thing, right? But my issue is now you're not going to now change reality or the laws based on what's going on in your mind. I don't support that. I don't allow that. I won't entertain that. And if I had a male officer who thinks that he is a woman try to pat down my family, my women folk, we're going to have an issue. Best believe we're going to have an issue. I'm not promoting anybody to break any laws or to cause any harm to anybody. Of course not. Follow your laws. But this law absolutely cannot come into act This is not something that as Muslims we should ever turn back on or roll over for, so to speak. This is something that we have to actively stand up against because it starts with this. Notice how when you look at women's rights activists, right? They started out with just wanting to have everyone in society view them as equal to men in humanity. I have no issue with that. We're not equal as in we're not the same, but Islam, in Islam, a man and a woman both have the equal right and in value as a human being in the eyes of God. I don't have an issue with that. But then these women's rights activists in the West, they slowly move to, okay, I also want to vote, then I want power, then I want to be the same as a man, then I want this, then I want that. To be honest, now it's just degenerate what's happening in the West. And this is the same thing that's going to happen with the LGTV electronics movement. They're going to start with the bathrooms. I don't have an issue if you want to create a bathroom for men that feel like they're a woman and only they go there. I don't have an issue with that. I also don't have an issue if you want them to be able to come to our washroom because they're still biologically a male. They have an X and a Y chromosome, just like me. I don't have an issue if you, but my issue is why are you now then going to let them go into a washroom that's just for women? And before anybody says, "Oh, this is very discriminatory. This is this," I'm just telling you what's been the law and in the American Psychiatric Association's DSM, right? This is the psychiatric manual for clinicians in the West. This has deemed this as an issue, as a pathology for the longest time. And I get that the goalposts change in the West because there's no objective morality, but I'm not about to sit aside while a male officer pats down my women folk. I'm not going to support that. And what's crazy is there's a lot of charges and cases now against this police force in the UK now for even allowing this to get this far, to even be seriously considered. And I'm not surprised at all because this is just the way that things are in the West. There's no objective morality. In a Muslim country, this would never happen. You would never find gender neutral washrooms in the Muslim countries. You would never find a male police officer that just wants to feel like he's a woman, that wants to just identify as a woman, right? Apparently, the only criteria that the UK required was he has to have a certificate stating his pronouns and his transition or whatever that is. Sometimes you don't even need to medically transition, and you can't fully medically transition anyway, 100%. And now, all of a sudden, you will be able to pat down any woman like a creep. Why is this allowed? This would never be allowed in the Muslim countries or even Eastern countries that are not Muslim, but they're not secularized. So, as Muslims, I'm gonna say this once: we will not support this. We will not stand for this. Things that the devil wants will be moved into society, will be sewn into the fabric of society bit by bit. And as Allah tells us time and time and again in the Quran, when it comes to things like zina or shaitan, like don't even go near that. Don't even entertain one footstep of the devil because it'll start with this. And then before you know it, it'll be okay for men to do whatever they want to your women. Do not, I repeat, do not support this. As Muslims, we have to speak against this because it's only us bowing the knee that let these modern Western dominant ideologies get to the point and extent that they're at today. May Allah bless you. It's not empowerment. It's subhanallah. Yeah, bro. This is absolutely like a huge issue. Day youth everywhere. That's a big problem. Crazy thing Shaitan did to all of us. Absolutely. Trust me when I tell you this. This is absolutely disgusting. Walaikum salam. Everything is so crazy these days. Sometimes we feel like we're living in a bad movie. Tell me about it. I live here. All the smart, educated Muslims I know want to leave for Gulf countries. Absolutely. At my high school, they had gender neutral bathrooms and people started using it as a vape room. This is disgusting. Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. UK is crazy. Yeah, this is what it is. West is never civilized. Subhanallah. But then they have the audacity to make it look like we are the ones that are regressed. Subhanallah. Yo, bro, you cut say what the hell because it's haram because only I don't know, bro. Can you please type normally? It's giving me brain rot. I would feel very skeptical about a female police officer patting me down if that were the case. As for those men claiming to be women, well, that's just how they feel about themselves. You would feel skeptical about a female police officer patting you down as a woman? Please let me know what you think about that. Jake, walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Did you make up with Zaid? Alhamdulillah, me and Zaid are on good terms. No problem with that. Abu Bakr writes, this is disgusting. In what country is this? This is in the civilized West, right? So yeah, so to go back into it, just to summarize this, my issue with this, one more time, this is not condoning hate or discrimination of anybody. This is the West. You guys have your laws. No one is going to tell you to change your ways. You know, no one's here to force you. You do your thing. My issue is simply, if I am a Muslim and I have my laws that don't go against any of your laws, my laws don't harm anybody, let me practice my religion. You know, and as Muslims, we have to be firm about that. I remember when I was working in the gym as a personal trainer back in the day. I remember I used to tell them, "Hey, I just want a 5 minute break to pray dohor." Right? They don't know what dohor is, but I'm just like, I just need a 5 minute break to pray. I tell my manager, I'm like, "Hey, bro, I gotta pray dohor. I need 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, just to pray. Just give me 5 minutes." And there was another Muslim, let's call him Ahmed, at work, right? Just for lack of a better word. And he had the weirdest look on his face when he looked at me and he said, "Ahmed doesn't pray. Why do you need 5 minutes to pray when Ahmed doesn't pray? Ahmed's a Muslim too, right? He doesn't pray. Why do you need to pray?" And I had to look at this guy and I was just so, my mind was boggled. I was like, it's not my fault why Ahmed doesn't pray, my guy. Like, what do you want me to say? I want to pray. Let me pray. Give me 5 minutes. Steve gets a, you know, 5 minute smoke break every hour. What's that about? Give me my 5 minutes to pray. I had to literally fight for that. Not like physically tooth and nail, but I'm saying like I had to voice my freedom to do that, which is crazy. It's strange. This is the time that we live in, that we have to even say that we don't want men to pat down our women because they identify as women and they're part of the police. And this is also something that I'm going to say. I don't promote anybody to break any laws, but as Muslims, we can't bow the knee. We have to know our rights. We can't be out here trying to just completely be assimilated. And this is how the West has colonized most of the world, as the default, as the gold standard, as the white man's burden. We can't allow that. You know, I refuse, as someone who is doing his best to submit to the will of God, who has God given, divinely revealed knowledge from the Quran, to think that anything else should even be remotely competitive with that, to even be remotely considered, to even be remotely negotiated with. No. Say you need a bathroom break. Yeah, this is crazy. Don't ask to pray, just go pray. I mean, if, I need somebody to manage the front desk if that's where I'm at. You know what I mean? At the gym, it's insane. If you say you need a bathroom break when you actually need a break to pray, it would be lying. Yeah, it might be. I'm gonna go Jackson Pie. Here in the UK, yeah, who'd get their own police department, ambulance, and hospital. Subhanallah. Smoking is okay, but praying 5 minutes is a problem. This is my thing, bro. Like, it's okay to drink alcohol, right? But just, don't commit any crimes. How does that make sense? Most of the crimes, there was a study that I read, I'll try to find it if I can for you guys, but most of the crimes that are done in the West are done under the influence of alcohol. Like, is that not scary that most of the crimes committed are done under the influence of alcohol? Just to let that sink in. What that's telling me is, if there was no alcohol in the West and it was completely prohibited and banned, then majority of crimes would not take place. Like, why is there even an allowable percentage of your blood alcohol concentration when you're driving? I don't know if you guys knew this, but in the West, you can drive with some blood alcohol. It just has to be under a certain concentration in, respective to whatever state or country or laws that you're living with. Like, it does that not blow your mind? So of course there's going to be people that are going to do drunk driving. Like, why? And then you have like things like, oh, if if you drink and drive in like New Year's when a lot of people drink, then you're gonna have a heavy fine or like double demerit points. So basically just saying, just don't get caught. Because you can't tell me that we're living in a system where you can drive 100 miles over the speed limit, and as long as you don't get caught, you're fine. But somebody can drive 20 miles over and get caught. That's it. I'm not one to promote, again, anyone breaking any laws. We should all live within the laws of the land. My issue is when the justice system is built on getting away with it and nobody fears God, then everyone's just going to avoid doing things if they know that they're being watched. When a Muslim knows he's always being watched or she's always being watched, there's always God level accountability. Allah is always watching. He is a watcher over us all. So we're not going to do something just because we think we can get away with it, because we know we're not going to get away with it. We're never going to have the last laugh. This is not how it works. Let me go back to some of these chats. Exactly, exactly. That reminds me of the verse where Allah SWT says that Satan seeks to sow discord between you through alcohol. Subhanallah. Sister Amina writes, I work in a hospital. If you ask to pray, they look at you like you're crazy. SMH, I don't ask, I just go pray. Tell someone need to use the restroom to cover me. That's pretty based. Alk is allowed because they don't care about the people. Just look at their societies. I mean, bro, it's a probably billion, if not $1 trillion industry. It's going to pay bills of a lot of conglomerates. So, of course, this is going to be here. If they actually care about the people, they would turn to Islam. Yeah, this is another thing, too, that in the West, they have to demonize Islam so people don't look into Islam. And if people don't look into Islam, then they'll forever be shackled by riba and interest and all these things. I think in coming years it'll be fard for Muslims to do hijrah. I think so. I mean, some scholars differ if it's already fard now. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran very specific things about hijrah. One of the things mainly that one valid excuse will be that you can't afford to do so. And I know a lot of people waffle and they'll say, oh, I can't afford to do so. But it's like, bro, you're spending so much on DLC skins, my guy, video game skins. I didn't even know this was a thing. A DLC skin is basically, when you're playing a video game and you got like a character, you can customize the character's outfit. So you're basically buying more colorful pixels for something that doesn't even exist. I've seen kids spend hundreds of dollars on this. People have the money to make hijrah. They just don't want to. They just make excuses. This LGTV electronics movement garbage is sick. They try to push on the children. Absolutely. Satan only wants to cause between you animosity and hatred through intoxicants and gambling, and to avert you from the remembrance of Allah and prayer. So will you not desist? Subhanallah. Subhanallah. Trying to get my life together to do hijrah. I'm a new revert. Make dua for me, akhis. Shabab, may Allah make it super easy for you and us all, inshallah, to make hijrah. This is something that we all should be working towards, inshallah. All right, guys, some final comments, and then I'm going to put on Dan Bilzerian. There's some big news with Dan Bilzerian, subhanAllah, that we got to talk about. And I want to talk about this mainly because anytime there's a non-Muslim looking into Islam or showing interest in Islam, many of the Muslims, y'all don't know how to behave. It's like we lose our common sense. Sometimes we start simping too much for some validation. I mean, it's not to say we shouldn't have enthusiasm, right? But come on, there's a difference. Let me put this on the screen, inshallah. Definitely going to talk about this.
There's a lot of